Hello everybody, my name is Megan. Welcome back to my channel, and this is my April 2022 wrap up. So my April 2022 TBR was chosen by the lovely Chloe at Persistent Bookworm, and we'll link her down below as well as my TBR video. And she played TBR Mash for me, so I'm going to go through the TBR Mash books and whether or not I managed to complete TBR Mash or if I will have to take a punishment. And then I'll just dive into everything else I read, because I read other things and I'm here to talk about them. So the first prompt she gave me for TBR Mash was a book that makes you laugh, which I chose, The Last of August by Brittany Cavallaro for, and I have read this. I gave it 4 stars. This is a book, it's the second in the Sherlock Holmes series, following the descendants of Sherlock Holmes and John Watson as they go to an elite boarding school in America together. And in the first book they're framed for murder and have to work together to learn their names, and then this book it sort of continues on from that, and I love the relationship dynamics in here. The ending of this book was absolutely insane. I read it and I thought I'd read it wrong. I had to read it again to make sure I knew what was happening, and I still am not sure I read it right, because is that really what happened? So yeah, really want to continue with the series. Very glad I read it. 4.5 for 4 stars. Next was a free pick, and for that I chose Final Girls by Riley Sager. I have already unhauled this book. It is no longer in my possession. This is a thriller, or is it a mystery? It's a thriller or mystery, following 3 final girls. So girls who have survived massacres, and one of them shows up dead, and then the other 2 meet up to figure out if she killed herself or if something foul play is in the mix. I didn't like it. DNF'd it at page like 130. Not for me. Not good. I'll link the vlog I read it in when that's finally up, because I don't think that is yet. Yeah, but I'm counting it as I've not failed TBR Mash, because I did give it a go and I could have read it if I wanted to, and I just didn't. Next was a book that is a certain page number. The page number was 439, and for that I chose The Sinister Mystery of the Mesmerising Girl by Theodora Goth, which is the 3rd and final book in the Extraordinary Adventures of the Athena Club trilogy. And I love this series so much. I gave this 4 stars. I did complete it. So it's supposed to be 439 pages, and it is actually 434, and this was such a good conclusion. This follows the daughters of characters from Gothic literature, and they've been experimented upon and are monsters, and so sort of find each other and work together to solve mysteries and help each other, and it's just really sweet and really fun and funny, and I love the characters and I love the relationships, and just all of the dynamics in this are just excellent, and the atmosphere and the vibe of the book is very, very fun, very good. Chef's kiss. Wish there were more. I'm really sad this is the end. They talk about adventures that they haven't had yet in like the notes of this, and I just want them. Why did it have to end? It's really rude of it, I think. Next was colour, and I was wearing a green shirt at the time, and so I picked A Far Wilder Magic by Alison Saff. We follow Maggie Welty and Weston Winters. Maggie is a hunter and Wes is an alchemist, and they team up to join a hunt so they can kill a magic fox, and it's like really romantic, and the world is really interesting, and the commentary on toxic families and religion is really interesting, and I love Wes, and I love Maggie, and I love Trouble, who is Maggie's dog. And if any of you are doing the Royal Readathon this year, Forced Proximity would definitely fit for this one. It's really good, like really good. I got 2 of the same colour, so I had to have an extra pick, and for that I got fantasy, which I picked Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hogg for. This is... Did I tell you what I rated A Far Wilder Magic? It was my favourite book of the month that wasn't a reread. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was truly very, very good. And The Sinister Mystery of the Mesmerising Girl, I gave 4 stars. And despite the fact that every book in the series has been 4 stars, there's something about it that now makes it one of my favourite series of all time. Okay, now we're up to date. Book 1 in the Farseer trilogy, which follows Fitz, the bastard son of the king in waiting, who upon hearing he has a bastard abdicates, buggers off to the country, and leaves Fitz to be looked after by his former man-at-arms and raised in the palace, where the king thinks, you know what, could make use of this bastard, let's train him to be an assassin. And yeah, it's just generally that this whole trilogy is just Fitz going through from childhood through to young adulthood and just having the worst time, just truly not having a good time. Just someone give the boy a hug. Yeah, this book I gave 4 stars. It was good, and it did make me cry. I did tear up when I read this. It was a little emotional, but there's just something about it that wasn't quite, it's not quite 5 stars. It was missing something, which is sad, but I'm intrigued to carry on with more of Hobb's series, leading me straight on to Mansion, a book over 500 pages, which I chose Royal Assassin by Robin Hogg, book 2 in the series. This I think is my least favourite in the trilogy. This was 4 stars. It was just a very slow, very meandering book. There wasn't a massive amount of plot. It was very much just court politics and intrigue, and like badly done court politics and intrigue, and no one was taking threats seriously, and everyone was just making bad decisions, and it was frustrating. And in like a good way, like it was frustrating because I cared about the characters and I cared about the world and I cared about what was happening, but at the same time, like, get your shit together, like please. What are you doing? Like, this is a kingdom at stake. Why are you letting things get this bad? And then the ending of this book, oh, really, really out there. Really did something. So yeah, completed this book. 4 stars for Mansion for TBR Mash. And then we just go on to the rest of the books I read. So a natural place to go from here would be Assassin's Quest by Hogg, the final book in the Farseer trilogy. This is so very long and also has some pacing issues. Like, I think the quest only begins page like 500. The beginning is very much just like Fitz having a terrible time, which could be said for the entire trilogy, if I'm being honest. I completed the entire trilogy. I have a video where I read it coming out at some point in the future, so if it's out already, I'll link it. If it's not, I'll link it when it is. And yeah, 4-star series. Looking forward to carrying on with the Realm of the Oldlings. Next, I read Meet Me in the Margins by Melissa Ferguson. This is a book about someone who works in a publishing house as an assistant acquisitions editor, but she's also writing her own romance book, and someone starts writing edits in the margins of the manuscript she's hidden in a room and helps her become a better writer whilst also falling in love. And it's cute. Had a good time. 4 stars. It had its issues, and I talk about them in a vlog because there's just not quite enough romantic development and tension between our couple, and there's issues with the family that I have. But overall, I had a really good time with it, and my battery's not dying. Okay, we are back with a new battery and a slightly different angle because I knocked over my tripod. So, Meet Me in the Margins, 4 stars, good time, recommend. I also listened to Ayawadi on Ayawadi, A Cinematic Odyssey by Richard Ayawadi. This was 3 stars. It was my non-fiction of the month. It was fine. Like, it had its moments of being funny, but it didn't engage me. It didn't keep me gripped. It's an interview of Ayawadi with himself talking about his cinematic and movie making exploits, and I could see what he was trying to do, and maybe if I'd been in like a really good mood it would have been fine, but I spent basically all of April being ill and grumpy, and it just wasn't the vibe, you know. It didn't amuse me the same way that A View from the Top did. I thought A View from the Top was clever and witty, and this was just fine. So if you want to read an Ayawadi book, I recommend A View from the Top, and maybe skip this one. I also listened to the audio of The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turnton. I had this on hold from the library. This is a story about the assistant to a world famous detective who has to solve a mystery while they're on a boat crossing from somewhere to Amsterdam. Can't remember where they're going from, and they're trying to figure out if it's supernatural or not. And there's romance, and the atmosphere was really good, and I really enjoyed it, but the ending was quite terrible, like actually really quite bad, which moved it from like a 4.55 star down to a 4. The ending really was just bad, but I do recommend it if you don't care that the ending's bad. Like, if you just want the atmosphere and the idea of a mystery and things like that. And I will say I was invested in the romance. I hate that I was, but I was. And that's all I have to say about The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turnton. I listened to 2 classics on audio, following on from The Sinister Mystery of the Mesmerising Girl. I listened to The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells, which is about Dr. Moreau, who is creating beastmen on an island, and one of the main characters in the Athena Club series is Catherine Moreau, a Puma woman. It was pretty good. I gave it like a 3.5, 4 star. The writing was pretty good. It was sort of told as a recounting and diary entries, and I enjoyed it. And I also listened to Rappaccini's Daughter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, I want to say. Yeah, Nathaniel Hawthorne, which is about Rappaccini, who is growing poisoned, and his daughter Beatrice, and their neighbour who moves next door and becomes infatuated with Beatrice. And I didn't think the writing in this one was anything special. I give it 3 stars. I think maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I didn't know everything about the story already from The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter, but alas, I did, and so there was no surprise or intrigue. So it's sort of difficult to be motivated to read it, other than I wanted to know if there was more to it. So yeah, read 2 classics this month, go me. And then I also reread some books this month. I reread Heartstopper volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, and I love this series so much. If anyone doesn't know what this is about, like, where have you been? The show came out on Netflix this month, and it was wonderful and magical and everything I wanted it to be. And yeah, I needed to reread the series. And these were my only 5 stars of the month, which is really sad. But I'm really glad I read them. They're about Nick and Charlie. Charlie is a boy who has been out in his high school for a while and has been bullied because of it. And Nick is his new friend who he sits next to in form in the morning. And slowly they start to develop a crush on each other, and Charlie has to and Nick has to come to terms with his sexuality, and it's just really sweet and wholesome. And we do have a trigger warning for sexual assault in the first book, and then as we get through books sort of 3 and 4, volumes 3 and 4, we have more discussions about mental health and eating disorders, so if they are triggers for you, keep an eye out for those. And then I also managed to read some BookBox books this month. So I read A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross, which was an Illuma Crate book from earlier this year. This is a book about a bard who is originally from Cadence, a magical island, who has been away at university and is summoned back to help with the disappearance of some girls from the island. They think music is the only way to fix things, and he thinks he's been summoned back by his laird, sort of Scottish, but he's not. He's been summoned back by his daughter, who they did not get on as a child, and I really liked this. This was 4.5 stars. The atmosphere in this was great. The world, the magic was really interesting. The relationships that were developed were really interesting, and including like side characters. You don't just focus on the two characters you think you're going to focus on. There's like other people that sort of get enhanced storylines, and that's really interesting, and I'm excited for the next book because I thought this wasn't going to have a sequel. I thought it was a standalone. I was fuming at the ending, but thankfully it's not the case. There's going to be more. Then I read Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Sulin, which is a retelling inspired by the Mid-Autumn legend, and it's about the daughter of the Moon Goddess who escapes from her home and befriends the child of the Emperor so that she can figure out a way to eventually go back home and save her mother from the curse she's under, and like lots of other things go on. In the meantime, it's a book that suffers from its pacing a little bit, and it suffers from its characters being like frustrating, but the world is interesting. The mythology behind it is all really interesting, and I wish I'd liked it more. This was a 3-star read for me, and I'm sad about it, but I will continue with the series and hopefully enjoy it more. And I want to say and finally, but I feel like I've not spoken about enough things, so like, is it and finally? It is. So, and finally we have Only a Monster by Vanessa, which is a fairy loop book from earlier this year, and it follows Joan, who is half human, half monster. She's from a family of monsters, which she doesn't realise, and she starts dating a monster hunter, or a monster slayer. She doesn't realise, and then a lot of really terrible things happen, and she has to team up with the son of a rival monster family to try and fix things. And this felt like a lot of things happened in this, but it's quite short. Like, it was a quick read, and the ending of this was not expected for a YA story, and I had a really good time, and I'm looking forward to the next book in the series. I have no idea where it's going to go, like absolutely none, and I'm very intrigued and kind of scared. Yeah, I really enjoyed most of what I read, but I didn't get any new 5 stars this month. Every 5-star was a reread, which is a shame, but fingers crossed for May. I'll link my TBR below. Let's hope that it goes well for me. And yeah, I will link social media down at the bottom. Feel free to chat with me in the comments about your April reading and any thoughts you have about mine. And I will see you soon with another video.